What happens when you've grown your Amazon business as much as you can and don't have the time or resources to take it to the next level? That's where Thrasio comes in. Thrasio acquires category-leading FBA brands from small business owners just like you and specializes in taking your brand to new heights while you profit from the growth. When you sell your business to Thrasio, your deal could include a long-term earnout, meaning you profit when your brand grows under their management. So if you're thinking about selling your FBA business, visit thrasio.com/helium10 to connect with Thrasio's deals team. That's THRASIO.com/helium10 for more information on if your brand is a good fit for Thrasio.
We all know that selling on a marketplace is a great opportunity, and there's a lot of ways to sell on marketplaces, whether it's through merch and POD or actually creating your own brands. But the topic of reselling has actually been one of those that we hear a lot about lately. People are debating, is reselling still a viable business, or is reselling completely dead and we need to create our own brands? Today, we're getting into that topic in this episode with Dan Meadors from the Wholesale Formula. It's going to be a great episode, stay to the end. Here we go. Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of the AM PM podcast, where today we are talking, as usual, about e-commerce. When I got started selling on Amazon, it was actually kind of by accident. I didn't know you could sell on Amazon, and I had these great wholesale lists and prices that I had, and I actually put a Craigslist ad out and said, I need someone to teach me how to sell on eBay. And this old bald guy showed up to my office and said, let me see those price lists. And he looked and he said, you don't need to sell on eBay, you need to sell on Amazon. I said, I didn't know you could sell on Amazon. And that started the whole thing. Within a few months, we'd sold a few $1 million worth of products, and we're already launching private label products, and things got crazy. And as I've kind of matured in this space and seen a lot of different business models and different entrepreneurs, this whole concept of reselling continuously surfaces. Reselling could be in the form of arbitrage, like your online or retail arbitrage, most of you are familiar with. And I think most people would agree that if you're going to resell, you need to move under the kind of wholesale model. But there's a lot of questions that I personally myself have about the wholesale model and whether it's still viable on marketplaces like Amazon or Walmart. And today we have, I guess, one of the experts, Dan Meadors from the Wholesale Formula, who's here to answer all of my questions and kind of let you guys listen in. So welcome to the podcast, Dan.
Hey, Tim. Thanks for having me on, brother.
Now, I don't know if you remember the first time we met. You probably don't, because back then you were really cool and popular, and I was just getting started in this space. But I met you at the Rocky Mountain Reseller Conference in Denver, Colorado, which was pretty cool. I remember when those conferences started, legalized marijuana had just started in Colorado. So it attracted quite an interesting crowd to those conferences there in Denver. But I remember also thinking to myself, holy cow, it's another Southerner. Because there's not many of us hillbilly redneck types running around this e-commerce space, right?
No, you don't hear the country twang very often, man. It's wild.
I've even been accused of being a poser because I don't have much of the twang. And I guess I talk to so many people that don't have it, it kind of disappears. But for those of you that are used to listening, the more I talk to Dan, the more it's going to come out. It's inevitable.
We'll see if we can pull some of your inner hillbilly out.
It doesn't take much, I promise. So Dan, you're from a little town in Kentucky that actually has more cows than people. Is that right?
If it doesn't, it's really close. I mean, it's a race to see who can get the more people in. It's cows or people at this point.
And it probably depends on when market day and auction day is. And all that
exactly. It depends on the comings and goings of the cows, I think.
So living in this little, I guess, hillbilly Kentucky town, how on earth did you get started in this whole world of e-commerce?
Well, it was kind of crazy. I worked at an internet retail company that sold Magic the Gathering, Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh cards off their own website. And that company had grown tremendously. Like, it was crazy, the growth that we experienced there. And one day the CFO of that company came in and he said he had given his notice. And like, honestly, it blew my mind. It literally blew my mind because we live in a really small area, man, and there's not like a ton of awesome jobs around. Like, and relatively speaking, working at a gaming company making six figures plus is a pretty dang awesome job. Like, so it was like, I was just like, what? Like, what are you doing? And he's like, dude, I honestly just make more money sitting at home selling stuff on Amazon than I do coming to work. He was like, in less than half the time. And this was like literally the first time I heard about a human selling on Amazon. Like I knew Amazon existed. I knew you could go buy books there and stuff. But like,
Now, what year was this?
This was in 2000, late 2000 or early 2011.
Oh, this was early then.
Yeah. And so like I was like, whoa, like you sell, what do you mean? Like you sell stuff on Amazon? And he was like, yeah, man, it's kind of like selling on eBay, except they ship your stuff for you. And I remember when I was in college, Tim, like I had a pretty awesome eBay store. I had I sold video games, vintage video games specifically. Like I got to dork out all the time because, I tested, like I would test them religiously. But the thing I hated about it was shipping all the orders, man. Like it just takes so long to like sit there and pack and ship individual orders. And it's kind of like what drove me away. Like I made good money in college, but I just did not want to do it again. Like I didn't feel like kind of like being a customer service rep and doing that all again. Like so he was like, you can send it in and Amazon takes care of like the majority of the customer service stuff. And then, they do all the packing and shipping. I was like, whoa, man, that is so cool. And he like took me out to a Walmart and showed me kind of what he was doing and literally got started that day. And I got started. My very first product was Disney cars. And there was this one guy, I remember scanning him in the store and he was like $3 on the shelf and he was $15 on Amazon. And I was like, there's no way. But it was $3, man. Like I bought all of them they had, I bought all like 24 of them they had or something. And was like, all right, we'll see if this Amazon thing pans out. And literally when I got the email that they were receiving the shipment, it started selling. Like things started selling. And I was like, oh my gosh. So like from then on, like if I had a free hour, I was like in a store scanning or reading about Amazon or something about that. And then, so, about 6 months goes by, like we started in July, I guess, around June, July, something like that. And, in December, we were having a $50,000 month and I lost my job. Like I got fired. And, so it was, I remember like I told my wife, like, cause I didn't want her to freak out. Like I didn't want her to be terrified. And I was like, cause I had a pretty dang good job. And I was like, hey, I decided to quit my job today.
Got some good news and some bad news.
And she was like, no, don't do that. Like, don't quit your job. And I was like, no, it's already happened. That ship sailed. We're already in it. And so for years, I didn't actually tell her I'd gotten fired. But it worked, man. Like it was one of those things. Like I worked my face off, just getting out and getting in stores and like shopping and stuff. And I made good money. Like our margins were great. But the problem is anytime you hear about this model, it's like, gosh, it sounds like a lot of work, and it is a lot.
Yeah, you're just trading hours because the sales stop unless you're scanning stuff in a store.
Yeah, but for us, like it was like interesting because it was trading hours, but we were kind of using it to build our bankroll. Like I didn't really have a bankroll to start, so it was a good way for us to build our bankroll and kind of like slowly learn about Amazon and stuff like that. Like we were learning definitely more about Amazon, but it was like in 2014. It was like, we were pretty exhausted, man. Like seriously, we were doing over $1 million in sales going into Walmarts and Targets. And like the closest Target to me is an hour and a half away. So like to do $1 million in sales where you're having to literally drive forever to even start shopping is a lot. Like, we were probably working 60, 70-hour weeks, particularly during Q4. And that motivated us to start looking for other models. Like, we looked at private label. We launched a couple of private label brands. We had one product that did really well, but we failed pretty good there initially. And then got kind of like found our way into wholesale. And it struggled a little bit, but found our footing a lot faster.
You got into the wholesale model. You started succeeding. You eventually started coaching. You joined up with a business partner and created the wholesale formula, which has been around a long time, which is not just a course, but it's actually like a training community, right? Teach people how to do this.
Yeah, it's one of those things that kind of developed. I mean, I remember the first time that we got the idea to launch the wholesale formula. It was like I didn't even. It was kind of funny. One of my buddies, we grew up playing Magic the Gathering cards together, and he was over at my warehouse and we were playing, and he was like, "Hey man, like he had been a teacher until the year before, and then he had started making a football playbook that he sold. Like he was a coach too, and had pretty dang good success with it. Like he'd made more than he'd made from his teaching job. And he was like, you should make a course on this. And I was like, man, like I don't think anybody really wants to know how to do this. Like, and he was like, no, way more than you would think. And so we decided, like we put together something, and it was real. It was real, just kind of put together. Like it had great information, but like the organization of it and stuff, we didn't have any idea what we were doing at the time. And our expectation was we decided if anybody bought it, we were going to open a bottle of champagne. And if 5 people bought, that we were going to open a better bottle of champagne. And I think it was like 140 people ended up buying the first time we opened it. And it was just it's kind of like an amazing experience. It was awesome because, like, number one, at the time we got to learn a lot. Like whenever you're teaching people and working with people, like it makes you learn so much more. And it like forced me to learn in a lot of areas that I hadn't, I had kind of like avoided or set off in part of like certain parts of the business. So it was really awesome. And like our business grew exponentially, just an incredible amount of success in that first class of people, like just an incredible amount of success. And then over time, like it's just, that was in 2015. Over time, I mean, we've launched kind of like the same course, like we've evolved it. Like the course that we had in 2015, the course aspect of it, I guess, that we had in 2015 was, is very different than what.
Yeah, it's been evolving.
Right. Like the whole how you sell on Amazon has evolved. Like how you sell on Amazon has changed. And, that's one of the things that we've been really proud of is we've updated along the way and added a lot of core components like coaching and community support and those things to really help get results for people.
And all of that is why I really wanted you on today, because you've been doing it for a long time, but you've also been adjusting and adapting. You know that marketplaces change. You know that competition changes. You know that Amazon has changed. And I hear a lot of people now saying that reselling is dead, right? Whether it's IP complaints or lack of, supply chain or too much competition driving prices down where there's no profit margin, to all these different reasons. How would you respond to just that general statement of, is reselling on Amazon dead, knowing that you've been adjusting to continue to be relevant in that space?
No, I think it's, like the statement dead is kind of preposterous. Like it's changed. It's significantly changed. I mean, when we started in 2015, seriously, like it was like the Wild West. I mean, you could get any product, you could list it without repercussions. Like there were lots of fakes and like it was just wild. I mean, there was a lot going on. Amazon has significantly tightened the reins. Like they've significantly tightened the reins and created a lot more, rules for how products is to be sold and things like that. They've given brands a lot more control for being able to remove people, sometimes unnecessarily and sometimes necessarily, right? But I do think it's significantly changed. And maybe a certain aspect of it might eventually be dead. Like I think retail arbitrage and the online arbitrage, I don't think it is right now. Like I know plenty of folks out there doing really good with it, but I think it's gotten a lot harder. Like it's with IP complaints and you're always unauthorized. And that was kind of like what really got us to like push in aggressively to wholesale. Whenever we got started was kind of like the first year of that stuff was the Elsa thing, right? Like the frozen restrictions and all the complaints and having your listings taken down and stuff like that. And I remember when all that started happening, like we had so much inventory that we had acquired through, Walmarts and Targets, and we had receipts, but we didn't have any kind of invoices. And I was terrified. Like I was literally terrified then, and it's just gotten worse. But So that really kind of like, one of the things that we do as our type of wholesale is much different than most types of wholesale.
Going into 2022, based on what has changed in the industry, you've needed to adapt to, what is wholesale? Let's just start there and define that. What is wholesale?
Sure. There's like I said, there's a lot of different types. I mean, there's liquidation, there's like, closeout style, or just kind of like more general, just setting up accounts with distributors. And those aren't the things that we do. Like, I do think that those things, those types of selling have gotten handcuffed a lot more than our version, right? Like, because in a lot of cases, let's say I buy a closeout of something, like we have some really good friends in this space that do really well, and we were talking about it the other day to him about how it's changed, and it's like, if he buys a Nerf closeout, for example, it's like there's a lot of things that can cause him not to be able to sell Nerf specifically, so it's a lot riskier, right? So one of the things that we do is whenever we were building our business, we focused on building a cash flow oriented model. So it's like, I don't like sitting on a lot of product. I like to be cash in, cash out, kind of just, moving inventory. So like our average inventory turn rate was, is in the 40 to 50 days, depending on kind of what season we're in, right? Like, so it's like, we're always cash in, cash out. And another thing that we do that's not really typical is I don't just go set up accounts with distributors. Like, what we teach and what we do and have had a lot of success with is going directly to brands, establishing a relationship, adding a lot of value. And it's when I say like adding value, I'm not trying to be vague. It's like a lot of the things that you talk to about your brand builders, right? Like the people that are out there building brands. It's just, think about it, on these general listings where nobody's cares, like it just got put up, right? Like, it's not optimized. It doesn't have great images. It doesn't have great copy. It doesn't have all of the things that can make a listing successful. So what we do is we take that element of kind of that private label ideology of making great listings and developing, a better Amazon presence in general. And we take that and start working with the brand to do that. Now, we're very intentional about kind of the way we operate and communicate and stuff. And overall, like what our strategy is there, it's kind of a long-term strategy, right? It's like I develop the relationship, I start working with you. Over time, I show you that I can add value, I increase sales, and then we go for an exclusive.
So this sounds more like you're partnering with brands, not just reselling brands, which I think is a big difference.
Exactly.
Because when you think about the quote unquote private label game, there's a lot to it. You've got to find a product, create a product, develop the product, get the branding, get the packaging, get eventually some off-channel presence and marketing. And then you've got to also figure out the Amazon game. So what you're saying is you find brands that have all the other pieces all ready to go. They have the inventory, they have the products developed, they have all that stuff. They just don't know how to sell it on the market.
Right. They have the Amazon listings. I mean, we only start with products that are already listed on Amazon.
Yeah.
Like, so our path to market is, whenever I look at a product and why I like this, why I think this model is it has elements of complexity right towards the top. Like once you have a brand and you're starting to try to grow it and things like that. But like to get there, it's a lot more streamlined than a, like there's a lot less moving parts than a private label business. Like literally I have a product that has a defined amount of sales. Like I can look and see that this product's been selling, 300 times a month or something. And with bad listings, like just on sheer brand recognition alone, it's been selling that. So, we start with that product that's selling 300 times. And then my goal is over time, I want to help it sell 1,000 times and become the only seller. So it is developing that partnership. But
I think for a lot of the people that would claim like reselling is dead, wholesale is dead because you can't get access to products anymore. You can't get exclusives. You've got inauthenticity, claims coming in and getting you shut down the marketplaces from the brand owners. What you're saying is wholesale is still viable as long as you're actually doing it the right way and partnering with the brands instead of trying to slyly get access to their products at a discount. Is that right?
I've never had an IP claim like intentionally filed against me. I've never had one, and it's because every single brand that we work with knows that we're a partner of their brand. Like we communicate with them, we've helped them grow their brands. So,
and that was what I was going to ask you is why do the brands need you? Because I know a lot of the complaints are, why would a large brand or a large manufacturer, established brand actually need little old me. So if I approach them, what do I have to offer? And we've already touched on some of the answer to that, which is, they're good at a lot of things. They're not good on Amazon. So if we're a subject matter expert in Amazon, we can own that. So what are some of the other ways that we convince the brand they need to partner with us?
I think it's a matter of perception too. Like, right? Like everybody perceives, whenever they're calling a brand, that they're calling, somebody like Nike that has thousands and thousands and thousands of employees and things like that. Think about your brands, Tim. Like, I'm sure you have brands that do well, right? How many people are included in those companies? How many?
Just a small handful.
Exactly. Like, one of the brands that we work with, to give you an example, they have 3 employees in their main thing, and then they use a co-packer to package their product. So they have 3 employees. Their product does $2.5 million on Amazon. They don't have time. Like, those 3 employees, they're very good at what they do. They understand their how to work with their co-packers. They understand how to work with their distributors, with their stores and all, what have you. But they don't have the capacity to learn Amazon, nor do they want to. So for them, it was like, think of that. Like we started working with that brand. They were doing about 1.8. Now, when we first started working with them, they were doing about 1.8. They're on track to do 8 million this year. Like, to show you the difference that you can have. And that's just over a year and a half, 2 years. Like, we've made a lot of changes and learned a lot and implemented a lot of things that have helped their brand grow significantly. But like, with that specific brand, right? Like, it's 3 people. It's 3 people. So it's not, you don't have to convince some massive consortium of humans to work with you. Like, you just have to be able to talk to a human that, in a lot of cases, a lot of these brands that are successful on Amazon, you just kind of have to adjust what you're thinking, right? It's like, success to me, like, I whenever we started working with that brand, like, our margin was about 15%. So, what we were making $270,000 as an exclusive seller, just when they were doing $1.8 million. Like, that's the point, is that's a substantial amount of income for just the average person. Like, you don't have to work with Nike to make a ton of money. Like, you don't have to work with a $1 billion company. You can work with these small 3 and 5 people and small family brands that actually need you. That's the difference, is Nike doesn't need you. Like they have no use for you, but like, these brands that don't have that human capital or that expertise or something like that are inevitably better working with somebody who is mildly knowledgeable and cares a lot about their product than to work with just a mass of people, right? So that's our model. Our model is to find those types of brands, those types of products that they're great products. They just need this much more work, and they can be amazing. And
those smaller companies are easier to please too. Right.
Sure.
Because Nike's got massive KPIs and everybody's smart and they've got great, you know what I mean? Like, it's easier to really be the hero of a smaller company and then multiple smaller companies. So your profit margin's higher. You're getting a little extra love. You don't have everybody beating down the door. You're kind of flying under the radar and working with some of these brands that not everybody's attacking. So you said that you actually start off kind of making some changes to the listings, and you kind of show them like, hey, we know what we're doing now. Can we partner? How long does that usually take? What's usually the timeline between, hey, we're familiar with this product, maybe we can get the ability to resell it, to, hey, we want to approach them and try to get this exclusive, distribution right on Amazon? Is there a typical time range?
It can vary. I mean, a lot of it's kind of just depends on the impact that you have, right? Like, if let's say you're working with a brand that, has a lot of issues. They have a lot of issues, and you're able to kind of come in and make some of those significantly better, see some significant traction. They're going to be a lot more impressed, right? And some of these are kind of like longer roads to hoe. But the point is, you're making money all along the way, right? Like, even while I'm just one of 4 sellers, like, I get to make money. And as I start developing that relationship, and maybe I talk them into, hey, those two folks that aren't really helping you out, what if you didn't sell to them anymore? Like, that would help us out. That would give us more sales. It would give us more buy box time. It would give us more advertising time, things like that. And that starts to move the needle, right? So usually what we see is kind of a progression of the brand. They start working with us. We start communicating about the things we're going to change. We show them what we changed. We show them how we did it. We tell them about expected results. We come back later with results and show them and go over it and talk about other changes and things we can do. and it's all just, that's all just moving the ball down the field, right? It's just like first down, first down, first down. And then eventually when we see, for us, what we're really looking for is we're looking for a marker, right? It's just like, oh, their sales went up, or oh, they started, they started selling more units, or so, just anything. It's just something related to that, right? Like something started selling more with advertising, like our advertising got really good traction, or just anything that we can kind of like grab onto and talk about, and start to move that ball down the field further.
Do you think that brands are starting to become a little bit more, I won't say arrogant, but confident they can do it themselves? And I'll give you some examples. Is now even these smaller brands are being reached out to directly by Amazon. Oh, we can launch you. We can get you listed. We can be an account manager. Now, you and I both know that those folks that are reaching out to these brands don't have a clue what they're doing, and it's going to be a disaster. But the point is, the brands are still starting to think they can do it themselves. Have you run into that, or do you still think that there's enough people out there that just need some help?
Well, it's always like, I think that's always the case, right? Like there's always objections. The objections change. I mean, there's always been objections. So I don't think that it's, I don't think that's the case. Like I think there's lots of people out there that are willing to work with you, just like there always has been. And then there's, our specialty, to be honest with you, is the people that say no. I don't even like the people who say yes. Like the people who say yes whenever we contact them are the ones that tend to have those races to the bottom. They're not, I'm not special. They're not just saying yes to me. They're saying yes to me and Tim and Tom and Will and Betty. And you know what I mean? They're saying yes to everybody. So like my specialty and all of our best brands are the ones that came back to me initially with no. And then what do? Like we overcome objections with logic. Like it's not fancy sales tactics. It's, I have a specific way that I can walk a brand through and show them how we can help. And some say yes, and the vast majority say no. But the point is, I don't need all of them to say yes. Just like, just like as a private label seller, you don't need every single product you ever look at to be good enough to add to your line. It's, the fact of the matter is 95% aren't. But when you find a winner, like it plugs in well, right? And it's the same concept. It's like the vast majority of people I can't convince that already told me no. But the ones I do have substantial revenue potential, like the example that I mentioned earlier. And, then like whenever you have that, whenever you have that kind of that shift where you worked with them, you start getting them results. Like, I mean, our renewal rate with our clients last year in exclusives was 100%, literally 100%. And it's because we have great relationships with all of our brands. We got results. We help them grow, right? So
now, as you help them grow, though, competitors are going to start seeing those brands pop up more and more. And I mean competitors to you. The better you do you have more and more people approaching those brands and offering work with them directly too? And do you lose clients that way, or?
We didn't lose any this year, but it's certainly possible, right? But that's the point, and that's just like any other business. Just like if as a private label seller, if you don't if you don't stay on top of your listings, if you're not constantly like testing and looking and optimizing, what happens? You start to fall behind, right? And
Yep.
the same concept is, in wholesale, what this does is it just like your brands force you to do work. We have to do work to get results, and we get results, and that keeps us keeps us, relatively speaking, in a good setting with our clients.
Now, what about Amazon itself? There's two things that I hear happens in the wholesale space that I'd be curious to get your take on. The first one is even the brands start to determine what's the point. Why do we want to sell on Amazon, right? And there's some different reasons that maybe the perception is they shouldn't want to be selling on Amazon. For example, if they're selling into a lot of brick and mortar stores, those brick and mortar store guys claim or gripe, hey, why should I buy products that's on my shelf being on Amazon? So how often do you run into that? And the second thing is, how much do you have to compete against Vendor Central, which is Amazon's first party selling system, where Amazon essentially buys straight from the brand and sells it. And I know of some wholesalers where Amazon said, hey, we want to buy from you directly, and they cut out the wholesale partner.
Sure. Well, we don't actually compete on any listings with Vendor Central. Like that's one of our things. We don't look for products that are sold by Amazon. And when we establish relationships with brands, like we're very upfront.
You make sure to stay away from that.
Yeah, we don't do that. And you hear all these horror stories about Amazon coming onto your listing magically. It's literally happened 0 times to us in the past. I guess, golly, it's crazy. It's like 5.5 years now. Like, you know what I mean? It doesn't happen. It just doesn't happen because we have a good
Vendor Central is not an issue. What about this other one? What about brands that think we don't even want our products listed on Amazon? You ever run into that?
To me, that's one of those objections. That's an objection. Like, I've heard that, and like part of me just explain, like, whenever they say that, it's easy, right? Like, it's a simple explanation of your products are going to be sold on Amazon whether you want them to or not. Like, the reality is
they're going to be there.
You can either control the supply chain, you can either control and the listing and presence, or you can just let it fall where the chips may. And in a lot of cases, that's what brands do, right? And they choose to ignore it. But the problem, so I love when I get that objection because it's so easy to crush. It's so easy to crush. And part of it is, who do you think is going to deliver a better customer experience? You or, some random person you don't know? And it's like, oh, me, of course. And it's like, all right, would you want to work with us to help us develop that customer experience? And that's part of what we do, is overcoming those types of objections. So yes, that's an objection. I have heard it. I love that objection because it's one of the easiest to overcome.
Tell me if I've got this right. You do not think that reselling or wholesale specifically on Amazon is dead, right?
I think the use of the wholesale that we do, what we teach and what we actually do, the necessity for it is bigger than ever. I think in a lot of cases, the people that were just kind of like buying items and selling items on Amazon without developing relationships or things like that, I think relationships are going to be a huge factor going forward. And if you've not been developing,
typical wholesale is starting to dwindle, but brand partnering, which is to wholesale or exclusive distributorship, like that stuff is becoming even more valuable, which is like a big change of mentality. Do you think that you should call it something different than wholesale? Because the perception of wholesale, like if you could rebrand this method, what would you call it?
I actually don't know. We've talked about this 1,000 times. Like it's like, because it is very confusing. It is, and it's not exactly like when you talk about wholesale, like the only aspect of wholesale that we do is acquire the product from a
acquire
brand,
the product
right?
and sell it. Yeah.
Like the rest of what we do is like just direct retail almost. It's brand direct retail would probably be the most applicable description, I would think, is where we are a brand's direct retailer.
I'm going to make a statement with a few sentences here, and you tell me if this is right. So based on what you've told me today, old school arbitrage, old school wholesale is not as effective on Amazon as it used to be, but there's actually an even bigger opportunity now, which is partnering with these brands. If you can prove to these brands that you know what they're doing and they don't have to do it themselves, then you can work on getting exclusive distribution rights on platforms. You can get maybe even specialized pricing, and you get a scenario where a lot of these brands only want to work with you, which gives you less competition. Is all of that correct?
Yeah.
So it sounds amazing, and it sounds almost too easy. But going into problems, one of my suspicions, right, and you tell me if this is right, one of the biggest barriers to entries is actually finding a brand that needs you. Is that one of your kind of secret sauce things, is how do you find these brands?
The how to find a brand is not that hard. It's the converting with a brand is
it's the selling them, the convincing them.
Right. And that's what a lot of our focus is on how to have that conversation, how to show them, and it's a lot of it's just opportunity based. Like you're able to, a lot of the brands that we try to work with have significant opportunity to them. Like you just have to be able to explain that opportunity, right? They don't have enough pictures, they don't have the right keywords, they don't have the right things in their bullet points. Like it's all things that you can see, and as long as you can communicate it effectively, you can convince a brand to work with you. And you know this as well as I do. Like day one, private label sellers can make positive changes to a listing. Like you absolutely can. You just have to know what you're looking for, right? So it's just what a lot of what we're able to do is we're able to teach people what to look for and how to explain it to a brand to make it make sense.
what are one of the changes that you're anticipating having to make going forward into 2022 and 2023? Is there something that you're kind of got your eyes on as far as, hey, we're going to have to continue to adapt this way, or we're going to have to keep an eye on this, or this is something we're fearful of?
No, I mean, well, one of the things that we've started implementing in our businesses, or in our business with exclusivity and things like that, is like with several of our brands, we do what we call brand management, and that's where we physically operate their account and do it. So it's an effective, effectively it's an exclusive for us, but it's through their account, so we actually don't cover any of the uh, inventory costs. Like we're just paid a commission of sales. I think that style may see more prevalence over the next couple of years, particularly depending on what direction they take brand registry. Right, like a lot of how brand registry gets tied to a product, and then likewise the features that are available through brand registry can kind of determine who should sell a brand's products. But like the point is every one of those relationships that we're in like that now, we got there through developing the relationship as a wholesale seller, right? Like it was developing that natural relationship, and I think that's for most everybody, that's going to be the easiest route to sell on Amazon is to kind of learn how to set up that relationship, and then wherever they grow and take their business from there, it is what it is. But I think like if you're looking at ways to be successful, like if I were a starting seller, or I was thinking about trying to get started selling on Amazon, like I don't know if I would look at retail arbitrage and online arbitrage at this point. Whereas in years past, I would have definitely suggested looking at that. But like now, I mean, there's so many things with like the IP restrictions. There's just so many complications you can have that like I would tell someone to start. If like you don't have great marketing capabilities and you're not like great at you're not great at like advertising and stuff like that. Like start here with products that already make sense. Develop relationships that can kind of cultivate.
And this makes a whole lot of sense. I mean, just tons and tons of sense, and I get it. I do think it's interesting that your kind of crystal ball viewing going into wholesale is very similar to what we're seeing on like the private label side, which is that the hacky, manipulative, get fast or get rich quick, and fast kind of methodology is disappearing, regardless of whether you're reselling, managing brands, or creating your own brands. It's all coming down to tried and true business practices and sales practices. Create something that people want, sell it really well, whether it's your brand or whether you're partnering with a brand, because the days of, using manipulative systems to try to get a quick buck are starting to disappear. And I love it. I actually think that it's a kind of maturing of the marketplaces. I think this also is going to play into other marketplaces, not just Amazon, but Walmart and Mercado Libre and all these other big marketplaces where people are expecting more. People are expecting a brand experience, a brand story, better quality. And even the marketplaces themselves are starting to curate their seller base. They're starting to be more selective and more choosy about who they want selling on their marketplace. We're seeing that now with Amazon doing video interviews to open up an Amazon account, or specifically Walmart. They're very, very particular about who they sell. So I don't know, maybe that's just me rambling or musing, Dan, but I do think that it's interesting that regardless of the selling model, that same ththing continues to be true, that people want legitimate sellers and legitimate brands.
No, I mean, that's it. Like, for a brand, it's like, it's always kind of funny. Like whenever you think about it from a brand's perspective, it is way easier for them to work with a third party seller, like way easier. Because like you'd mentioned it right there, like Amazon has been changing a lot, specifically related to rules about manipulation and stuff like that, right? And so if a brand was to hire a person to bring them on, first they have to train them. Then they have to verify the sources of that training. Like, did they learn black hat tactics? Did they learn all this other stuff that could get them in trouble, right? Like, and you have to think about competency. Like whenever you have somebody and you're bringing them on, it's, what is the metric for competency? So if a brand can work with a third party seller who is already competent, who already has those skills, they're literally getting, instead of having to pay and take a chance on somebody, they literally are able to kind of farm that capability out, right? And then like with private label sellers, this is like, I think our model actually lines up really well with private label sellers, because it's like a lot of the same skills that are cultivated are the same skills that we literally get paid for, right? Like, I get paid to be able to do the things that you're doing. I get paid by brands to do the things that you're doing to your own brand. And it's, I think there's a lot of, potential for private label sellers in that area too. Like, to start becoming more brand managers and working with brands, because it's fun. It's fun building your brand, but you definitely have more limited resources than some of the brands that exist. And if like you had their capability and resources, like you could take them and grow a lot. And I think that demand is significantly growing for people like you, for the brands that are out there that can kind of take and grow something.
Yeah, I love that there is adaption, right? And there is, continued processes and research and trial and error to figure out how to continue to sell products online to make money. I do kind of understand where people make comments like reselling is dead or arbitrage is dead, but I think it's so cool that in our little entrepreneurial world, we continue to find ways to adjust and prove that even though small battles can be lost, the war can be won, or, small specific projects or methods or techniques will go in and out of fashion or in and out of, effectiveness. The basic principle is we continue to learn how to be e-commerce marketers and digital marketers. There will always be a place for us, whether it's to sell our own brands or to sell somebody else's brand. So I find it highly encouraging, and at the risk of sounding cheesy and cliche, it's kind of empowering too.
No, I mean, I think specialization and specialty wins, right? Like, if you take times to build, if you're taking time to build skills, like the skills that actually can change your brand or do something, like those skills are applicable no matter what product you're working on. Like, the truth be told, it's like your skill is monetizable. And it's, I think for sellers, like the ones who want to be successful, it is continue to hone those skills. Don't be lazy. Don't look for the fast ways to make money. Like Amazon has proven, like they're going after the short-term stuff. They're going after the more hacky things. And it's, if you can continue to build skills that let you, above board, be able to make a product sell better, I think it's going to be something that is significantly more in demand than it is now.
Agreed. So we're running out of time. We need to wrap up, but I imagine you've got a lot more content. If anybody wanted to find out more about what you've got going on or some of the methods that you use or kind of your outlook on the space, I'm guessing they would go over to thewholesaleformula.com. Is that right?
That's the best place. That's like the best place where you can kind of find all of our stuff. Like, we got links to all the social media stuff, and we got all the,
okay.
Yeah, thewholesaleformula.com. We got a blog that people can check out and get started there and learn
awesome.
a little bit.
So for those of you that are interested in that, definitely go there. And Dan, we appreciate so much you coming on and sharing this. I know that yourself, just like all of our other guests, are busy, and we're all trying to help each other and all get better at this whole thing and grow this community, and kind of the rising tide raises all ships mentality that we live by. So we appreciate you taking some time out of your day to share that with us. For all of you that are listening, I say it every episode. I'm going to say it again. I ask you to take it seriously. If you found any value in this episode, go leave us a review on whatever podcast platform you're listening on. Make sure to distribute this to any masterminds or groups or anybody that you're familiar with that would like to hear this. We sure appreciate that love you show us by listening. And Dan, again, we thank you for being on. And any final words of wisdom before we cut out of here?
No, I would just tell everybody, honestly, just continue to refine your skills, continue to work hard. Like, to me, it's what I see succeed every time is the people who work the hardest, right? Like they get in there, they continue to work, and they continue to develop their skills, and it pays off every single time.
Could not end on better words of wisdom. Thank you, Dan. We love all of you, and we'll see you on the next episode.